Good morning, first grade. All right, we are coming to the end of our work with me, Jane, and it's your turn and your time to put everything we've been learning about and talking about with reading and with writing to write your own informative paragraph. And I know this is new and I know that we're learning, so I always, as always, just ask that you try your best. And we are going to get everything set up for you, and we'll go through this together in this learning video. So feel free to pause it while you're working on your writing, and I'll also include the charts. You'll see what we work on during this lesson. I'll include that in the Seesaw activity as well for you to help you as you write your paragraph. All right, so an informative paragraph, we have been talking about those for a few weeks now. And what we are going to do in our informative paragraph is answer the question, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? So we've talked about the word discovery before, or discoveries, and that means to learn something new about something, to figure something out. So we want to answer this question. So keep this question in your mind. How did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? Now, in your last supply box pickup, the one from November that has this written on the front cover, there is a paper. If you remember the one that we did with 7 blind mice, the one right after that looks like this, and it has the prompt at the beginning that says, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? It's really just lined paper, so if you have this paper and can use it, great. If you're having trouble finding it, you can always just grab plain paper if you need to. There is a second page behind it that's just blank if you need additional room to write on for your paragraph. Okay, and then this is just the checklist, and we'll go over that, all the things we want to include in our paragraph. But this was in the 3rd supply box folder, and it says Assessment 12A, Focusing Question Task 2. I know that's a lot, but that would be the paper that you can use for today's writing. Okay, so before we write our paragraph, we want to go back into the text and gather some what we call evidence to use in our informative paragraph. So remember, we're asking the question, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? So we're going to complete this chart here together right now, and then you can use this to help you as you put together your informative paragraph. So there are 3 parts to it. What did Jane discover about animals? How did Jane discover the information? And then this word here that says evidence, that's like the proof. That's the specific part from the text, from the book, that supports what we're saying. Let's do the first one, and I hope it will make a little bit more sense. So let's go into the text. Okay, so I have the book pulled up next to us, and let's look for somewhere in the book specific evidence of something she discovered about animals, and look for how she discovered that information. So if we flip through, and I'm thinking of one page to start. Let me move this over. Okay, there we go. So on this page, it says, she watched birds making their nest, spiders spinning their webs, and squirrels chasing one another up and down trees. So this is a part where she's learning about animals. So let's go back to the chart and fill in, and I will type this up and then I'll be right back. But I'm going to put in the chart the animals that she observed, that she saw. And how did she discover the information? Yeah, she just watched them in her backyard. And under the evidence, I'm going to put the page numbers where I found this part of the book. So I'll do the typing and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I included what she discovered was birds make nests, spiders spin webs, and squirrels chase each other. And the way that she found out this information or discovered was by watching. She watched the animals in the backyard. And this came from, I know you couldn't see it on the screen, but this came from pages 4 and 5 in the book. So let's go look for another piece of evidence that we can use in our informative paragraph. Okay, so on this next page, it says, Jane learned all that she could about the animals and plants she studied in her backyard and read about in books. So she is learning about the animals and plants that she's studying and seeing in her backyard, but she's also reading about them in books. So not only did she watch the animals, but she's also reading about them in books. So that's another way that she discovered things about animals. So we can add that to our chart. Okay, so I added, while we were paused, I added learned about plants and animals in her backyard, studied and read books, and where I found this, the specific evidence from the text that this evidence is found on pages 6 and 7. So let's go look for one more example of where, what, and how Jane discovered information about animals. Okay, so we also see here she does all of her drawings and writings. And then this part of the story, she was curious. One day, curious Jane wondered where eggs came from. So she and Jubilee snuck into Grandma Nut's chicken coop. So throughout these pages, it says, hid behind some straw, stayed very still, and observed the miracle. So she learned what happens. Right, chickens lay eggs. This was what she discovered about animals, how that works, how that happens. And the way that she did it was by observing and sitting very still and waiting for the chicken to lay the egg. So let's add that to our chart. And now we'll get to the paragraph. Okay, so I added chickens lay eggs. How she made the discovery was she observed and was still. And the evidence, this happened on pages 10 through 14. So finding that specific part in the text. Okay, so now if you didn't already, or if you would like to grab this paper from the third supply box pickup, and let's start talking about how we can take this information from the chart and put it into an informative paragraph. So can you think about what are the parts of an informative paragraph? Did anybody think of this in their head? Right, our sandwich organizer that helps us to remember the 3 parts to an informative paragraph. We have our topic sentence, the information, all the facts and the details are in the middle, and then we end the paragraph with a conclusion. So now let's walk through the steps, the different parts of the topic sentence, facts and details, and the conclusion. So for our topic sentence, as we remember, our topic sentence, the job of the topic sentence, I should say, is to catch the reader's attention and tell them what the paragraph is going to be telling them about. So if we go back to the question, what the question is, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? We could start our informative paragraph something like taking this question and turning it into a complete sentence, turning it into a telling sentence, a declarative sentence. Something like Jane Goodall makes discoveries about animals, right? That could be our topic sentence. We can look at this sentence frame to help us put together our topic sentence. Jane Goodall makes discoveries about animals. Okay, so that would be what we would start with for our first sentence, our topic sentence in our informative paragraph. Now, the next part is the facts and the details, and this is where our chart is going to come in handy. Now, they're asking us to include 2 or more details about how Jane Goodall discovered information about animals or made discoveries about animals. So this part of the chart is really what's going to help us to come up with those facts and details sentences. So really there were three main ways that she made discoveries. She watched them in her backyard, she studied and then read about the animals in books, and she observed the chicken in the chicken coop by sitting very still and observing the chicken. So you could use, to pick two of those to create two sentences about the details, two detailed sentences for your informative paragraph. So we would start with our topic sentence. Jane Goodall made discoveries about animals, period. Then we move to our two details. So using this chart to help you. Now, you can't just write watched as your sentence, right? That's not a complete sentence. So we can use the chart to help us then create complete sentences. Maybe something like, she watched the animals in her backyard, or, she observed the chicken in the chicken coop, period. And those could be, possibly two details you could include in your informative paragraph. And then the last part, of course, is the conclusion, right? It's how we wrap everything up. It's putting the bow on the wrapped present, because it just kind of finishes everything up. And if you just stop at the detail, it kind of feels like you just kind of like stopped and you need to just wrap it up, right? That's how I always feel. So what you could use as a sentence frame to help you get started with the conclusion is something like, Jane Goodall learned about, what did she learn about? What was the question? Yeah, she learned about animals. So that might be a great place, a great way to end your informative paragraph. So just to review on our paper here, we would want to write our informative paragraph answering the question, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? We want to start with our topic sentence, something like, Jane Goodall made discoveries about animals, right? That's what the paragraph is telling us about. That tells the reader exactly what you're going to tell them about. Start with that, and then you have your meat, cheese, lettuce and tomato in the middle, that you give your two or more details of how she discovered. So either watching them in the backyard, studying about them in books, observing and sitting still to wait for the chicken to lay the egg. Any of those two, you could use two or three if you'd like to include an additional detail, but we want to try to have at least two. Topic sentence are at least two details written into complete sentences, and then our conclusion. Again, something like, Jane Goodall learned about animals, right? So feel free to use the sentence frames to help you with the topic sentence and the conclusion, and then use the chart here to help you come up with your details, okay? So you can go ahead and use this paper, write your sentences for your paragraph, and write it down. And then if you want to take a break, kind of walk away from it for a minute. Remember, we talked about how good writers will write something, but kind of take a break and then come back to it and check to make sure, did you use a capital at the beginning of every sentence? And did you use punctuation at the end of each of your sentences? And I can't wait to see your informative paragraphs. I know this is new, but I know you're going to do a great job. And let me know if you have any questions, if you need any help. This checklist at the front is helpful just to kind of make sure that you have everything that you need for your informative paragraph. And I can't wait to read your writings. And then you could just take a picture of it and post it on this activity whenever you're finished. Okay? But let me know if you need any help, and I can't wait to see them. Thanks. Bye.